question, which is the difference between an asset management company and a corporate organization. You mentioned that the asset management company is an organization of diversified structure and professional partnership and long-term trust, and all these things that you mentioned on various occasions. So could you elaborate a little bit of the difference between a corporate organization in general and the asset management company? Because particularly in Japan, we think asset management company is another company like a corporate organization. And as you know quite well, all this interrelated between the parent company and the asset management company. For example, if you take a securities companies, always the asset management company is under the influence, particularly in the personnel, and the top management is always coming from this parent company, which will affect quite a lot about the culture, which we're going to mention later. But first of all, the difference between these two organizations, a corporate organization in general and the asset management company, as you mentioned.
I think it's a really important question. And I would say that there are three major areas where an asset management culture is very different from a traditional corporate. The first one is the need for diversity of thought. The second one is the need for very deep expertise. And the third is a fiduciary duty to clients. And maybe I can touch on each of those. In terms of a diversity of thought, most corporate cultures look to find a consensus. There's an enormous amount of effort put into gathering people's opinions and then arriving at kind of a common view. If you do that in asset management, essentially all you're going to do is take the collective view of the market, and you'll never generate any real excess return. Asset managers need to be able to take a view that is non-consensus. That is, it's not what most other people think. That's how we generate return. In order to do that, you need a culture that actually encourages different points of view, does not try to blend them all together, and then supports people who may have a different point of view, even for a period of years. We've had portfolio managers and others who have had strong beliefs which have been wrong for quite a while before they're right. And having a culture that will support somebody for 2 years while the rest of the market doesn't believe them is really, really important, because that's where you get the true excess return from investing. So diversity of thought is really important. The second one I mentioned is expertise based. And that's because we believe in having what I call an upside down culture, whereby almost all decisions are made as close to the asset as they can be, but by very experienced people. So on average, our portfolio managers have more than 20 years experience. They know more about high yield bonds or growth equities or real estate than most people, because they've spent their careers in it. And we invest trust in them because they know the assets really well to make those decisions. And again, I would contrast that with a corporate culture that tends to have a hierarchy of decision making that moves up in seniority, but where the people who make the final decisions often have very little knowledge of the actual facts on the ground. And so asset management is the opposite of that, where we want the decision making made very close to the assets. And I think that's a particularly important point for Japan. You mentioned about the personnel policies and others of the major financial institutions. And I would say that Japanese financial institutions have some of the best process for developing broad general managers, but they don't tend to support the development of deep expertise, where you don't have any real rotation, but you do become the very best expert in a small area. But that's what's required of an asset manager. And the third one then is this notion of a fiduciary duty. And I think this is critically important. An asset manager needs to make decisions about investing and decisions about its business in the interests of its clients. That is, what will generate the best excess returns for its clients. it doesn't make the decisions based on simply maximizing profitability to the owner of the asset manager. Now, of course, you have to be able to earn a profit or you won't be able to keep the whole business going. So this is not an argument for charity, but it is to say in the hierarchy of things, we always make the decision based on what's in the best interest of our clients as the first port of call. And that, again, is very different than you would find in a bank or a securities firm where, in general, the interests of shareholders are the predominant decision-making framework. So those three areas, diversity of thought, expertise, and fiduciary, are the big differences, I think, in an asset management culture and are quite important to keep separate from a broad, traditional corporate hierarchical framework.